Well, hey there, YouTube. Welcome to Friday's technique video. And today is going to be a follow-up of my voice teacher reaction video on Disturbed's version of Sound of Silence. The Sounds of Silence, old Simon Garfunkel tune. And David Draymond does a great job with that. And that's what inspired this video, probably entitled How to Sing Higher with a Low Voice. Because he sings down in the basement down here around, starts the song down around about an A2 and goes down to the F sharp 2, which is really, really low, and then goes up to the A4. And probably has a lot more than that, but that's just in that song. And so I want to talk about, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, how to sing higher with a low voice. First, I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm Mike Goodrich with The Inner Singer, creator of the Inner Singer podcast, Inner Singer programs, and all kinds of Inner Singer stuff. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. And thanks to all of those of you who have subscribed and commented to all my videos. And let's jump into it. So anyway, how do you sing higher with a low voice? Well, the first thing I would ask you is, are you sure you have a low voice? And the reason I ask you that is because a lot of singers that I've met over the years, men and women, think because they don't have high notes or they haven't been able to access their high notes that they have a low voice. Or they've been told they have a low voice by somebody who didn't know how to teach them how to get into their mix, how to get the high notes. The other thing is a lot of people have gone to school, sung in choirs or choruses or what have you, and worked with a choir teacher or chorus teacher that did not know how to help them access their entire voice. And so they tossed them in the alto section as a woman, or the bass section as a man. I can't tell you how many tenors and sopranos I've worked with who were tagged as altos, contraltos, basses, baritones, all, just because the person with whom they were working did not know how to help them. And that's okay. Choir directors and these people, they don't really know that much about voice ordinarily. If you are one and you know about voice, forgive me. But a sweeping generalization is, most of the time they haven't spent 30 years doing this stuff. They've spent 30 years directing and teaching choirs and blending voices and doing that, which I can't do. I mean, we all have our special things that we do. So anyway, I would ask you, do you have a low voice? And are you sure that your voice category is one that would be categorized as a tenor, either a baritone or a bass, or a soprano, either a woman, either a mezzo or a contralto or an alto. If you hear that in the background, I think somebody is sawing something. Isn't that, I'll do my best to cut that out, but if you hear it, that's what's going on. It's home improvement time, in this world. A lot of us are doing that right now. So anyway, that's what I would ask you first of all. Secondly, a lot of people have a great ability, I'm not necessarily one of them at all, to sing really, really rich down low, really great low notes. And so that's what makes them think they have a low voice. So they have really good low notes, haven't necessarily been able to access the high notes. And so they just, put two and two together and say, okay, well, I have a low voice. Well, that might not be true because a lot of people with great ranges, Jeff Tate, for example, of Queensryche, and, Dimash, a million people, are able to sing really low and then get up into their mix and sing ridiculously high. So the fact that you have good low notes doesn't mean that you have a low voice. Now, if indeed you do have a low voice and you're an alto or a contralto or a mezzo, which is a little lower than a soprano, mezzo-soprano, as a woman, or you're a baritone or a bass baritone or a bass, lower, 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 right? True basses are very, very rare. But if you are indeed one, then what I'm about to tell you, and what I have spoken about in some other videos, is even more important to you. Because a light soprano or a lyric tenor has an ability sometimes to, for lack of a better expression, say, get away with things that those folks with heavier voices can't get away with. What I mean by that is this. A lighter soprano or a lighter tenor that holds a high tessitura, let's say a Steve Perry of Journey, really, really lyric tenor, can get away with broader vowels and still make the bridges, first and second bridge. A lighter voice soprano can get away with broader vowels through the first bridge and still make the second bridge, just because of the intrinsic, let's say, mass of their vocal cords. They're not, like, look at me, look at my body type, I'm thin. So I got a buddy of mine that's like 6'4", and 280 and all muscle. So if he's standing next to me, we would look like Laurel and Hardy, except he's in great shape. He's not, he's in great shape. But I'm thin, and he's like, the Rock, basically. Looks like Dwayne Johnson. So anyway, the point of that is his vocal cords would be a bass, and my vocal cords would be a tenor. His bass vocal cords will never sing as high as my tenor vocal cords. Okay, so that's number one. But having said that, in order for him to access his entire range, he is going to really have to be very disciplined at learning how to negotiate his bridges, which are going to be lower than my bridges. It's really important that if you have indeed intrinsically a low voice, thicker vocal cords, more mass in the cords, that you learn how to, number one, modify the vowel, which number two is going to help you negotiate the bridges. Now, what David Draymond does so beautifully is and this is another cool little tip, not that easy to explain, but I'll get you the idea. He approaches that song almost like a baritone singing German lieder. What I mean by that is that lieder singers or classical singers that sing German lieder lead with the head voice. And then they pour into it. So there's always that cushion of warmth and roundness in the voice, in the chord structure working. And what that does, it's like pouring oil into a hot engine. Instead of, just blasts away. Excuse me, they've got the, they've got that going on. So if you listen to the song, his cover of Sound of Silence that he did on Conan O'Brien show, I think 2016, you'll hear him go up to the A natural, F sharp, and then the A, and you'll hear in part of what he does, this gorgeous kind of heady quality leading into the strong sound. And what I want you to be able to do is once you can tune your ear, men and women, by the way, this applies to, once you tune your ear to being able to hear what they're doing. Now, he doesn't do that when he does the rasp. That's a totally different thing. I'm not going to talk about that right now. But when he's singing cleanly, that's what he does. And that's what holds the frequency for him and helps him be able to negotiate those high notes. It's not a pulled up chest sound. He's actually going from his chest into his mix with a lot of heady quality in that mix. That's the tenorish ring that he gets in his voice, even if one wouldn't necessarily classify him as a tenor. I don't know enough about his voice to classify him either way, and I wouldn't do that. But, there are a lot of voice teachers that say, oh, he's a baritone. Oh, he's I don't know the guy. I haven't heard. That's the only song I've heard. And so I wouldn't pigeonhole him as a baritone or a tenor. I know people call him a baritone, but anyway, so that's my soapbox again. But anyway, what you want to do is you lead with that head voice, and an exercise that can help you do that is if you take like an arpeggio, like this one. And for that would be for a man. That's the B2 going up to the F sharp 4. Now a woman would do that. The women could do that on starting, let's say, on a G flat 3, going to a D flat 5. And if you take the word new and you allow it to go heady. By heady, I mean, for women, you know what I mean by heady, more into a classical head voice sound. For men, it's towards a falsetto-y like sound, but not falsetto. So you'd go kind of, I'm not going, I'm very light, heady sound, right? That for you heavier voice is going to be very important that you're able to access that vocal quality and part of your voice to be able to negotiate higher, okay, to be able to get through those bridges, because you're not going to want to take all your vocal cord mass up through there. You're not going to be able to. It's like having this much room to get through and trying to take this through it, and you go, not going to make it. Not going to do it. So what you're going to have to do is, this is going to have to thin out to be able to make it, so that you narrow those vowels and you allow that head coordination and that heady sound, that falsetto-like sound, to help you do that. Which goes back to another video that I've talked about, where you absolutely need to thin it out, hook it up, and fill it in. So the first thing that you do is thin out the voice, and that does that. I'm singing very easily, but I'm making the bridge, and I'm not going into falsetto. It's not pulled chest, and it's not falsetto. And both you men and you women can do that if you have heavier voices. What you want to do is you've got to release the excess weight in the voice, because you're not going to be able to take it on up. You can't take that up, okay? So you got to release it, and that's the way to do it. It doesn't matter. Even if you're, now if you're a man and you crack into falsetto, that doesn't matter. Because what you're training yourself to learn is that there's something besides chest voice. And if for a while it's falsetto, that's totally cool, because you need to allow for that release. Because if you're not getting into your upper register and you have a lower voice to boot and intrinsically thicker vocal cords, then you really, hugely important, you've got to master the vowels, and you absolutely have to master the bridges. And I can almost guarantee you, you're going to sing higher than you ever thought you could. And I've worked with so many people, countless people. As a matter of fact, most of the people that I've worked with over the years that think they have a low voice don't. They've just, been the victim of what I talked about earlier. They were either tossed in as a bass or a contralto because nobody could help them, or they have really good low notes and they assume that they have a low voice because they've never, because of that, they've never even tried to access their upper register, which in some cases is probably really a blessing to them to have not done that because they didn't do it the wrong way. So anyway, do that one simple little exercise where you're doing an arpeggio. As the man, that's where you would start. As the woman, this is where you would start. So the man, just give yourself a B3. Do it now if you're not driving. And just do the new and just see where it goes. If it cracks into falsetto, that doesn't matter. But your turn. Here we go. Do that a few times and see if you can feel a release. For you women, do it here. Just let it go into your head voice. Here we go. If you don't know that scale, just listen to this a few times and go back and play around with it and see if you can get yourself to let go of the heaviness and go into something that isn't chest voice, okay? And it doesn't even matter what it is. It might be a pharyngeal sound. It might be a really light mix. It might be head voice. It might be falsetto. But the idea is you got to let go of that weight, okay? And so now leave your comments. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me the questions. I've been getting a lot of comments lately. I'm disappointed that I can't obviously answer all of them, especially in the voice teacher reaction videos. Like, whoa, it's awesome. I love it. I'm really, really grateful. But let me offer you something to follow up on what I'm talking about the vowels and the bridges. I've got a free singing accelerator video series. The link will be in the description. It has a 20-minute long video. One of the videos is on the magic of vowels. I give you a downloadable vowel chart, a PDF, and I walk through it in a video demonstrating how to master these vowels. For you folks with low voices, men or women, this is gold. It's vital. I'll say you've got no choice. You've got to do this. if you want to sing high with a low voice. You got no choice. You've got to master this. So go get that. It's the only place you'll find those videos. If you want to know the difference between belting and mixing, I have a free ebook, The 5 Biggest Mistakes People, can't remember the darn title, The 5 Biggest Mistakes Singers Make When Singing in their Mix or Belting and How You Can Avoid Them. There it is. It's a mouthful. And so go get that, and that'll clear up any confusion you might have about mixing and belting, because people with low voices can mix and belt, and you got to learn how to do that, okay? So if you like this video, please subscribe. It's great to see the subscriptions rolling in. It's really fun. Hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any of the videos. Comment. I love your comments. They're so helpful, and you guys are so knowledgeable about this stuff. It's really fun to get them. I will answer as many as I can. And thumbs up if you like it. And I will be back for another video real soon, and I thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.